and I'm very grateful. Normally, I would like to be there, and that would be ideal, but unfortunately I have to be away. But we should try to make this as interactive as possible. So just use the chat, talk to each other. I know it's after lunch, so try not to fall asleep. I'll do my best. I want to talk to you a little bit about the way I see the domain of digital humanities evolving to what I today consider cultural informatics. And I will talk to you through different projects I was involved in, like together with Sarah and other people, and try to see and understand the present and the future of cultural informatics. Okay. Now, very briefly, I'm sure you all know that digital humanities started in the 1940s, and it was a real need to combine computer science and humanities. And we have a lot of different departments. We have degrees called digital humanities. We have master courses. We have different journals called digital humanities. And it's the need to combine history, archaeology with computer science. Now, short quiz before we start. Can you mention the famous ancient Greeks? Can't see the audience, so just speak up. And mute your microphone and speak. 3 famous ancient Greeks, please. Anyone? Anything that comes in mind? Can't see the chat, so if there's something in the chat. Anyone? Sarah?
So in the chat, we've got Pericles, Socrates, Aristotle,
Beautiful.
Polyhymnia. Sorry, I can't pronounce that very well.
Very good, Socrates.
Calliope, Themistocles.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
But
I'll stop listing now.
write,
Thank you.
Did you mention any women? Yeah, thank you. Did you mention any women? Were any women mentioned? Any women mentioned? Because the ones I've heard, Pericles, Aristotle, and Socrates are all men. Were there any women? I'm not sure. If someone mentioned anyone.
Yes, Polyhymnia
Polynoid?
and Calliope.
Okay, that's the very first time that someone is putting the names of women in there in the chat. And normally, because women are very much in silence in ancient Greece, we don't know that many things about them. There are very few. And Calliope is a muse, is not a real person. So we have goddesses, we have muses, but the stories of real women, real people, we don't have that much information. At least people don't really know about it. So now in this project, like a digital humanities project, we try to give voice to these groups that normally we don't really see in today's museums. So the stories of women, the stories of children, the stories of slaves, you don't really see in archaeology museums around Greece, at least. So in this project, we chose 10 different museum items. And for these 10 items, we made 7 different tours. And in reality, you could go to the museum 7 different times and get 7 different experiences with the same 10 objects. And you could talk about women's appearance, daily life, education, different aspects of their lives using this mobile app. And you could talk about appearance, for example, and here you could see connections with women today and different ways people dress up and the way we use appearance as a code. The reason I didn't wear my bikini today to come talk to you is because I'm using this, I respect this code of appearance. You wear different things because you think these are appropriate for different settings. So it's the same with ancient artwork, with ancient women. They wear things because it's appropriate, and the clothes we see in the statues gives us a lot of information about who they are and what they did. Now look at this here. This is a woman sitting on a throne. that makes her a goddess because she's sitting. And we also know from her clothes that it's also Athena because she has something here that is quite damaged and you can't see it, but it's a gorgonian. It's a symbol of the goddess. So people could access the museum content. They could see the information about the different exhibits, the metadata. They could rate this exhibit, but they could also see different connections of that exhibit with exhibits from museums from all over the world. And in fact, for this particular one, it's heavily damaged, but we know exactly what it is and exactly how it looked like because we have Roman statues, the same copies. And in these videos, you could see the copies and you could understand how that looked back in 500 BC. Now, for another digital humanities project that we had the collaboration of computer scientists and historians. This project was, it talked about the huge refugee crisis that resulted after the end of the Greco-Turkish War in 1922 and 1923. Basically, because of that war, we had 1.5 million people, Orthodox, Christian Orthodox, that they had to leave the coastline of Asia Minor and they had to come to what today is Greece. And from Greece, 500,000 Muslims they were forced to leave and go to what today is Turkey. And because of this huge crisis and all the population moving, and it was done with a force and it was done under war conditions. We know what these people left behind. We had historians at that time, we had people at that time keeping a record of what these people left behind, their traditions, their customs, the villages. But what we don't really know is what happened when these people came to Greece. And Greece was not really ready to accept 1.5 million people. It was a very poor place. And we know that these people were not really welcomed. We know there was quite a lot of racism. We know there were a lot of social issues, but we don't really know the exact stories of different people because the times there did not allow a very good recording of the different family stories. Now, with this project, we tried to make people understand how Athens and the neighborhoods around Athens have been shaped by the arrival of these 1.5 million people, and use different landmarks and a map that you can explore your neighborhood with this app, and you can see things like street names, old houses, early churches, and why these are important and how these are connected to this first generation refugees. You can access historical content, you can access multimedia content. But another very important thing is that you can also have this crowdsourcing app, and that allows you to upload a lot of elements from your family archives. And this is very crucial now because that's the way we could collect the information that people did not collect back in 1922 and 1923. And here you have stories from grandparents, you have different photographic material, you have different recipes, songs, different things that people want to upload. And that's a way for us not only to preserve our cultural heritage, but also to engage people and make this sense of belonging, this community, sense of community in different neighborhoods around Athens. So now I think we gave you 2 examples about the way you could couple computer science and humanities. But is there a role for social sciences into cultural informatics and what I think is the evolution of digital humanities? A social scientist could be involved in profiling and personalization. We all have different interests, different personalities, different backgrounds, different needs when we visit a cultural heritage space and the way we understand, perceive cultural heritage. And here we could create different profiles and try to address those needs. Now here, now here you have different ways to do it. One way is an explicitly direct method, but this is done at the National Gallery in London. And with this app, we just ask people what they like to see. So you have these 10 images and people paintings, and people could do thumbs up, thumbs down. And then the system could understand what kind of interest they had. Of course, they could add some more things, the time they had available, if it was first-time visitors. And then the app was suggesting the best routes for them and the best and different narratives that match their needs. This can also be done in indirect ways. So it's explicit but indirect, and this is different games. But basically here you don't ask them what they want to see at the museum, but you give them a short quiz or you give them a little mini game, and they can play this. And then by playing this, we understand a lot of things about their personalities and about their needs. Now, for example, we have this small game is based on pop psychology quizzes that you see online, your favorite color and what kind of person you are. People like these things. So you play this mini game and you play this quiz to find which is your guardian goddess in ancient Greece. But while you do this, the system understands your cognitive profile and then adapts accordingly. There are other ways to do this. We have tried different types, different correlations. Here's another game that you choose an avatar, and just by using your game avatar, then we understand quite a lot of things about who you are. There are also ways to do this, implicit ways to do this. The most obvious one is social media profiling. Now, in social media, people are willing to put just absolutely everything about, from what they had last night for dinner to what they did in their holiday. They just put everything there. So from this, if we can use this access and use these social media profiles, then we can have pretty accurate museum profiles as well. But another way to do it is just to go and observe people indirectly while they're visiting. Now, here's another study we've done, and we were just observing people in the way they were moving inside the museum space, whether they approached exhibits or they kept far away, the way they moved. That again correlated, highly correlated with specific cognitive preferences. Another thing a social scientist could do is to work with collaborative interfaces. Here, this is a project I wasn't directly involved in, but I used it to collect data. And here you had people visiting a space together, and they had two tablets, two devices, and both of them worked autonomously. But if you put them together, then you could have the whole idea of the entire place. You could have a complete experience. Of course, that seems to work where people are willing to make it work, when they are extroverts, when they feel quite relaxed, then it will work, these collaborative interfaces. And then again, Sarah talked a little bit about emotions in the project we had together, but that's another one we've done at the UCL Grand Museum of Zoology. And if you're in London and you haven't been there, I just highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite places. And in that place, we decided to engage people, not only to engage them cognitively, but also trigger their emotion. And what we've done, we went up here at the museum lighting system and we installed these devices. These are speakers that release sonic beams. Now, they don't allow the sound to travel in the form of a wave in the room, but the sound is highly localized. That implies when two people go together, they don't carry any equipment, they don't have any headphones, they have nothing with them, they just walk. And as they walk together, one of them might hear the sound loud and clear when the other one will hear nothing. And all the sounds were designed to increase adrenaline. So there were heartbeats, there were gunshots, there were breathing hard, there were bees approaching, glasses breaking. And these sounds, and just by using these sounds, we created what we call information gap. Together with the increase in adrenaline levels. And what we saw is people increased a lot their intra-group and intergroup communication. They also stay a lot longer at the museum. They start asking questions about the specific sounds and why these specific sounds are associated with these exhibits. And a lot of people brought in their friends, tried to understand how the system worked. Of course, it wasn't a big mystery because there were infrared sensors on the floor that asked the speakers to start releasing the sound libraries. Now, another thing a social scientist will do is to create narratives, engaging narratives, and narratives that connect the past with the present. Now, again, here we have this one is a very humble tombstone from a small place in Greece, and it just says, "Hello, Arcadia," nothing much. But this one is connected with that one, and this one is a painting by Titian from the National Gallery in London. Now, both things are connected because they both refer to the same story. And the story is tragic and is mythology, and it has to do with Artemis, the goddess, as the main figure. Artemis is a hunting goddess and is also a virgin goddess. And if you want to be her follower and her nymph, you have to also be a virgin. So one day, Artemis finds out that one of her nymphs is pregnant, and this is the moment she discovers the pregnancy. But the nymph that is pregnant is most likely raped by Zeus. And now here is the paradox. The victim is also the one to be punished. And Artemis is vicious, and she turns this poor woman into a bear because she had enough, people swearing that they were virgins and then they are not anymore. So she's really very furious. But then lots of things happen, and then for some reason Zeus is trying to he feels a bit bad about the whole thing, and he's turning her and her son into star constellations, the Great and the Little Bear. And of course, the name of bear in Greece is Arcas, so Arcadia comes from that. So the whole thing is connected. Now, what a social scientist would do here is to connect the two and start talking about issues that they are very relevant to people today, like a pregnancy. And as the National Gallery did, they made a big educational program about wanted and unwanted pregnancies, and that was targeting teenagers. And a psychologist here and an education specialist and a psychologist could work further to make people reflect on issues like this, on mythologies and on the different stories that you can see through heritage. And of course, since people are reflecting, since you manage to make people reflect, you need to somehow analyze their reflections. And again, a social scientist could help into this analysis of reflections on cultural heritage. Now, another thing which is very popular is social media. And this, I wasn't involved in this. I would love to be a part of this, but this is the Getty Challenge. And I found it brilliant because it asks people to recreate these famous paintings from whatever they had at home. So I find this really brilliant. So a social scientist could be involved in these very successful social media campaigns. But the other thing you're trying to do is to spot characteristics of influencers, then try to turn museums into social media influencers themselves. Now, in one project we've done, we created tools to read the social media and what is trending every day on social media, what people are discussing in social media, and try to match this with different museum content. So say basically people talk about, I don't know, they talk about elections that day on social media. I'm sure that at a museum you might have something that is related, is relevant to the elections. So it could help curators create content, social media content that is appropriate to be released on that specific day. And it will, since people are already talking about it, then the museum could interfere and also engage people in discussions. I hope you all feel strong as a message of hope. Yeah, go on. So now, till now, I've talked about computer science, humanities, and social sciences. And now the question is there any room for natural sciences in cultural informatics? We are facing these climate challenges and the environmental challenges. And as a reaction to this, we have this network called Climate Heritage Network, but many other ways that heritage specialists are trying to inform the public about climate and environmental challenges, and are trying to make the people more engaged with this. Now, one thing is to make people understand how the different environmental challenges are threatening our heritage. And here we have erosion that comes from pollution, and how the different environmental conditions really affect our heritage. But another thing now is sustainability. We're very much interested in history and in heritage because it gives us very good ideas about sustainability. Now I'll give you an example. The place I come from, we have a lot of vineyards. And as a kid, I remember we had all these plants. And I remember my granddad with my uncles, they had this huge, huge lorry that they were filling up with a lot of water containers to go and water the plants. Now, this is not sustainable anymore because A, we don't have that much water left anymore. And B, it's quite expensive to have these massive trucks carrying water all the way to the vineyards and back. So that's not sustainable anymore. At the same time, the archaeologists of this area kept on finding remains of ancient plants between rocks. And they were wondering, why would people plant it between rocks? It's not a fertile ground. Why would they do that? And the reason is the rocks seem to trap humidity, and then you need a lot less watering. So the heritage and understanding our heritage and rediscovering our heritage is what will probably lead to more sustainable housing, agriculture, engineering, different things. And here again, architecture and engineering are very much involved in what we do because it helps us detect erosion. It helps us understand, predict how buildings will behave with earthquakes, and helps us understand the different construction phases and so on. Now, I found this very interesting back in 2020. And this is how biology and medicine are also connected to cultural heritage. Now, in 2020, we observed that the Google searches for the term Spanish flu went sky high in one night. And why was that? Because March 2020 is when it was when countries started locking down, and people were started understanding that this is something that would change their life. So they started looking into Spanish flu, and not because they were so much interested in the Spanish flu, but because they wanted to understand their present, to understand how it is to live in a pandemic, what makes you stay safe, how long will that last. So people started looking into this. So people went back to the history, went back to the heritage to understand their present, and of course in terms of biology and medicine. And now this is a project we are currently doing. And this is, it's focusing on people over 65. And we have this aging population, at least in the Western world, and a lot of people in our societies are 65 years of age and older, and they need to remain active and cognitively healthy and emotionally healthy. And cultural heritage might be the way to keep them healthy and keep them active and allow them to engage in the intergenerational dialogue and help them remain a very active part of our society. Now, in this project, we are focusing on this specific site. This is Delos. It was a sacred island for the god Apollo, and is more or less in the center of South Aegean Sea, very close to Mykonos. The island is just a big archaeological site. There's no population there now. It's just ruins, but it's very difficult to approach. You need 2 boats to go from Athens to Mykonos and from Mykonos to Delos. It's quite expensive. The weather conditions there are not very, very nice because it's always very windy and is very, very hot in the summer. You see, there are no shades, and the terrain is quite hard. People would have to walk through hard terrain for quite some time to reach the antiquities. So it's not a very good idea for people over 65 to visit. But for this place, we tried to engage them with different ways. First, we made this virtual reality experience, and we asked them to wear these head-mounted displays. Now, from this, we realized that older people are not very happy with this equipment because they wear vision glasses, hearing aids, and they were a bit concerned. But what we never thought of before we talked to them is a lot of them are wearing wigs, and they don't want this, they don't want their hair to become messy, and they don't want others to know that they don't have their own hair. So this was a no-no. People did not want us to continue working with these head-mounted displays. So we switched to a cave solution. And now we have this cave here. And now we are in the phase that we are trying to find ways to engage people over 65 in a way that they feel is safe and they feel is fun and they feel is okay to participate. So that's a project that is combining neurology, geriatrics, and cultural heritage. So now we've talked about computer science, humanities, social sciences, natural sciences. My personal opinion is that the arts, is the way forward for all scientific domains, but especially in cultural informatics, I think it has a big part. And it's a very good domain to try to bridge sciences and the arts. Now, we talk a lot about this new concept, digitality. And digital is anything that combines the digital with the physical. And everything we do is basically digital. Even what we do right now is digital. And to do this, you need graphics designers, you need people to understand and try to help, like this coloring book. You have what graphics designers did, this coloring book for kids. And then with augmented reality, you could see the original photo. On another project that combined the arts and cultural heritage and technology was this one. And in this one, we focus on this area. It's called Lavrio. It's 50 kilometers south of Athens. And these are the mines of ancient Athens. Basically, Athens would not be a superpower in antiquity if they did not have access to the silver from these mines. And these mines tell a lot of untold, they can tell you a lot of untold stories about slaves, stories, quite dark stories actually. And here we collaborated with kids from a music school. These are quite very talented musically talented kids and teenagers. And they came there and they got inspired by the different points of interest. And you see here they have labels from the archaeologist. And they were asked to make sound clips. So basically, we told them that whatever they create, it will be the way for people with visual impairments, with vision impairments, to experience this site. So they translated whatever they saw with their eyes into sounds for people with vision impairments. They did a fantastic work. They made these fantastic soundscapes. And now we will take them to a lab in New York, computer vision lab, and it will be used for rehabilitation of people with vision impairments. So that was a project I really, really enjoyed, and the kids were very passionate about it, and the result was really impressive. Before I finish, I want to go a little bit deeper into the current trends and talk a little bit more about interdisciplinarity. We should not just prepare for AI. AI is here, and I'm sure you've all seen holograms, you've seen chatbots, you've seen different ways that AI is a part of the cultural heritage domain. But I will talk to you about two projects that I find interesting. During COVID lockdown in Greece, we had very strict conditions during COVID. I think it's one of the most strict places in Europe because we had a curfew. We could only go out half an hour per day, 1 hour per day. And that was a shock because you were completely stuck in your house. You couldn't go anywhere. So people lost this sense of community. They lost this sense of socialization. They could not function normally within a social environment. So what we observed, it was a lot of the social media pages, Facebook, mostly pages of different towns popping up and asking people to post old photos and comment on these old photos. And that helped people, again, live within their community in a digital environment. This is from my hometown. And these are my photos because of copyrights. I just put mine, intellectual property rights. I just put my photos here. This is my grandma and my aunt and my mom and dad and all my family. And this is me first day in school. And in 3 days, we had more than 7,000 photos and comments. And it's different ways people are commenting on that. More than 7,000. And when you have that many, it's like you have nothing if all this content is unstructured. And of course, that content was unstructured. So 7,000 bits of material, you can't do much about it. So here we are using natural language processing tools and try to create usable archives and try to structure all this information that is there, which I believe is very valuable information. It gives you, it makes you understand the local heritage and makes you feel a part of that community. Now, another thing with artificial intelligence is Internet of Things. Internet of Things, when we talk about smart fridges that communicate with your supermarket once they realize you're out of eggs, all these things about Internet of Things. But can this be applied in cultural heritage? Now we are doing this at the lab setting at the moment, but I think is gonna come to the museums quite soon. And now let's talk about this painting we talked about before, the Artemis and the pregnancy painting. Yeah. Okay, so let's say we have this painting. And that painting knows what it is. It knows the theme, it knows the artist, it carries all its metadata. And once you have this painting next to this painting that also carries its own metadata, then they can find the common things between them, the associations. And then they can say, okay, they both talk about pregnancies. Let's make a narrative about pregnancies, wanted and unwanted. And we have asked now different AIs like ChatGPT and Gemini to create different narratives using these associations. And the results are really, really fascinating. You can ask AI to make a very dark narrative and very emotional, engaging. You can make it sound funny. And AI will do that for you. Now, if you have this painting, though, together with that item, then the story changes because they both, here you have two Artemises, and then you can talk about mythology. So the different artworks carrying their own metadata could create different types of narratives and different types of experiences. And one last thing I want to talk is about games. We use games in cultural heritage for profiling, learning, entertaining purposes, all sorts of purposes and all sorts of games. Now, very quickly, we have educational games. And in this game, people were asked to restructure ancient sanctuaries, but we realized that they only work if you put them inside a larger educational framework. You have advertising games where you have silly games like this one, like Avoid the Thunderbolts, but people seem to get hooked on these games and you can use them to advertise a venue and attract people. You have other types of games like this one that connected 4 different venues across Europe. And you ask people in the different venues to make groups and play against each other. So here they had to answer this. They had to do these quiz games. And they had a lot of fun. And complex games like these museum escape rooms that they are there to follow up the visit. So you have them after your visit, and it's asking people to solve riddles and ask questions and play that game. I think it was more than 30 minutes long. And the last thing is, when we talk about technologies in museums, and sometimes you go to a museum to collect to start working with your requirements, often you see these people coming very scared and asking you, what are you going to do here? Because, and these normally are human guides, museum guides, and they come and ask because they are very much afraid for losing their jobs. So if I make a very nice computer, a very nice mobile app, guide app, these people might lose their job, and they're very much afraid. So it is our maybe our obligation to start looking for um, finding solutions to create the symbiotic spaces where technology and humans can work together. And on this one, we took one of these museum apps that asked people to describe different paintings and asked museum human guides, if they could use that as a part of their guiding tour. And then they were very happy because then they realized that this technology can help them enhance the services they provide and attract more people to their tours. So wrapping up, I believe that cultural informatics, it's a very safe space to experiment. In the end of the day, nobody will die if you give them the wrong museum information. And it is an ideal space to try interdisciplinarity. We talk about interdisciplinarity, and we're all involved in different interdisciplinary tasks, but are we actually trained for it? Do we train our students for this? And I've been to projects that whatever when you talk about the user, for example, the museum curators thought the user is the visitor, while the computer expert thought the user is the user of their app. So we have issues from sharing vocabulary to sharing understanding. And interdisciplinarity is not something that comes on its own. It's something we need to train ourselves and others and our students in this. So cultural informatics is a safe space to experiment, is a space to try interdisciplinary approaches, and I believe it will take science and society further. But before we conclude, I just want to give you these four main points. As we saw at the beginning about underrepresented groups like women, children, slaves, and whatever is these underrepresented groups, are they a part of the experience we are creating? The other thing is, are we reproducing inequality? Are we creating new types of inequality with the technology we are designing? Another question is, are human jobs affected? And issues of organizational resistance to change. Once I remember this interactive table that they put in the middle of a museum, and it was really lovely. Then they realized that people are not using it. It was never on. And trying to understand why this was always without electricity, then they realized that the cleaner was going in there every night, unplugging the interactive table to plug in the Hoover. So organizational issues, again, are very important. And of course, are we planning for accessibility, physical, sensory, intellectual, cognitive, emotional, people over 65, and all these different types of visitors we might have? So thank you so much. I hope that was, it was 40 minutes. Yes, thank you very, very much. And now we can discuss whatever you like.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Angela. Are you okay to stop sharing your
Can't seem to
slides?
get. Yes.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. I think Colleen and I are tag teaming it in terms of hosting questions. This is an opportunity for anybody online or in person to speak to Angela, share ideas, ask questions, and so forth. And Colleen, I don't mind starting whilst we wait for all the questions to flood in, unless there's some in the room right there.
You've got a question too, so either way.
Oh, go for it. You go for it then, Colleen. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So some of the games that you're discussing are very similar to the types of games that Palantir were doing on Facebook. when they're gathering personality profiles in order to savage democracies all over the world. So I just wanted to, like, can you talk a little bit? You said you had a slide on of ethics at the end there, but I think I would like to hear a little bit more about sort of data gathering about personalities and places and things through these games, because it's also an issue, obviously, with Pokemon Go. They just sold off their whole database of where people, of a geographical database. So if you could just discuss a little bit more, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. So obviously, when we make games like this within a project, we have ethics approval, obviously, and we also give this disclaimer for people. But that is done within for research purposes, and we do it because we are a university. Now, if someone else does it that is not in the university and is not a researcher and is not with the specific funding, like European funding or something else, then they're free to do whatever they want. And then, Colleen, you're right. We could have issues, serious issues, how this data will be used and what will happen to all this information. The problem is that people are very willing to provide all sorts of information on social media without thinking twice. So the whole problem starts from the fact that we are not trained social media users. So people are very happily put their personal data there without thinking. So when we do it for the universities and we have the disclaimers and we will use them for scientific purposes, yes, but obviously they can be used for other purposes and we don't have any control over it. So as far as we're controlling the data, fine. And we have all the approvals and we have all the mechanisms to keep this data safe. But yeah, anyone could make games like this and anyone could make people think they're playing an innocent game while they're collecting personality data. Yeah. So, you know, it's, but you don't really have to play games, I think, just by analyzing what they put on social media by themselves is enough to give you a pretty good idea of what people think, believe, political views, everything.
Thanks, Angela. Maybe I will ask a question next, if that's all right, Colleen. I have a few, but something just struck me at the very end there when you also on the ethics slide, or maybe just prior to that when you were talking about the kind of computing technology space as a safe one to experiment within, and been reflecting on this a lot lately in relation to the environmental implications of the technologies themselves, like the kind of heavy environmental toll of the technologies themselves and the kind of extractive nature of a lot of technological development. And then also carbon consumption via use of cloud-based services, blah, blah, blah. So you did mention the one piece of work around climate, but I just wondered, is there any effort in these projects that you're working on to kind of scale back use of technologies, or can you talk a bit more about, say, ethical sourcing of technologies for your projects, that kind of thing, or guidance that you give to others around?
Yeah. Is not that I know of. The project we work with, we would never have this kind of requirement before. So I agree with you, is something we should consider further. But one thing that comes to my mind is when we ask from museums to give them some kind of application to design something for them to offer a solution. Then if you say, you know, I think we should be modest here and try to go for something that's more sustainable, something easier, then they don't want that. They want something very impressive, like virtual reality worlds. And it feels like cultural heritage sites, they want to turn into Disneylands. So there's this competition of how to attract more visitors rather than understanding the long-term, the impact of different solutions. There are here, at least in Greece, some initiatives from archaeologists to make what they call the green routes. but I think they are not very popular yet. They're not very known, and we haven't implemented anything like this in projects we do. But I think it's a very good point, and we should definitely look into this further. It's very, like, it's data centers and huge data centers, amazing amounts of power they use, and yeah.
Your point just made me think about the scholar Ananda Rutherford gave a talk a couple of weeks ago as part of this wider initiative called BRAID, which relates to AI. And in it, she showed a diagram that she'd made of a kind of adaptation of the Gartner hype cycle, but adapted to the museums and heritage sector, which was an even more depressing look at. And it kind of it reinforced what you were saying, which is that a lot of these hypes of naive behaviors are much more reinforced within and kind of cemented within the heritage sector in a way that it is deeply disturbing. So
yeah, maybe something we should start teaching our students, something we should try to make society more aware of this. And we believe that cultural heritage is not affecting the environment, but we are affecting the environment. We are we have a role in this. So maybe we should incorporate more in our curricula and try to talk more about these issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions on the, I can keep asking, but maybe there are other people that want to chat with or query Angela? Well, Colleen, is it okay if I ask another one and then we'll maybe wrap up? I guess it kind of builds on the question about the personality tests and so forth. I'm just interested in how you are managing the kind of sharing of that data. So you said that it's locked in your research projects, and obviously you know, because I've worked with you on some of these things around personality types. I'm just wondering what's happening with that data in the long term. Are you feeding some of the data from project to project? Like I'm thinking about the wider GDPR and other types of implications of holding on to the
destroy.
You are destroying it, and then okay. So my related question was around trends that you can see culturally across. I mean, a lot of the examples that you gave were Greek based. So, but I was wondering, so obviously you've been working in other parts of the world. Can you see differences in some of the kind of applications of your different platforms? Can you see cultural differences manifesting?
The different tools?
Yeah.
No, I don't think there are many differences, at least in the Western world. There are similar needs and similar demands from cultural heritage sectors. They follow international trends, like virtual reality is trending now, and then you had mobile apps trending a little bit before, and then you had holograms. You have different things that they seem to trend, and they seem to be global trends, at least in the Western world. And it has to do, I think, is detected by the cost of the technology. We had virtual reality a few years back, but because it was so expensive, we couldn't work with that in different museums. Now it's becoming cheaper, and now there is a big increase in the needs of in demands for virtual reality. So no, I wouldn't say there are differences, cultural differences into the types of technology we use, but there are differences in the content, and there are differences in the way we engage users. Basically, when you have families and you try to make experiences for families, we see differences in the way families behave in cultural heritage spaces in the north and in the south. Then we have these differences, but not in the way that they use technologies.
Thank you so much, Angela. I'm really grateful for your time today.
I'm very, very
the
happy.
presentation.
Thank you so
You're
much.
involved in a lot of really diverse and interesting things. So thank you for taking the time to share it. And